The reason every story needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't matter what it is, everything needs a beginning, a middle, and an ending. When you were in grade school, your teacher probably told you to write a story, making sure it contained a beginning, a middle, and an ending. This was to help prepare you for every type of writing you would come across in your life: short stories, journals and diaries, plays, essays, novels. The list goes on. Your teacher might have even tried an experiment with you and asked you to write a story, but to leave out the beginning, the middle, or the ending. Sounded easy enough. Less work. Problem is, unless you have all three parts of a story, you simply don't have a story. Works the same with pretty much everything, including jokes. Here's the ending of a joke I heard Eddie Murphy tell many years ago. So, the bear wiped his ass with the rabbit. With just the ending, that can't even be classified as a joke. Without the other key parts, you don't have anything more than confusion. Today, I'll explain just what I mean. Then at the end, I'll tell the joke in its entirety. Any story that you might write needs all three parts to be considered a completed story. Without all three performing their individual task, your story is incomplete. If you left out the beginning, you would soon realize that your story has no setup or introduction of your characters. This is where you introduce the setting and your protagonist. And this is where your protagonist encounters his first conflict that will send him on his journey. Without a beginning, your story would begin in the middle and without any understanding or purpose for your protagonist being there. Let's take the classic story, The Wizard of Oz. Most of us know about the 1939 movie version, but the actual story was written 39 years earlier. The protagonist, Dorothy, is a girl wanting more than the life she has on the farm where she lives. She later finds herself in a strange land called Oz, far from the only home she's ever known. She spends the rest of the story trying to get back there. If this story didn't have a beginning and began in the middle, then your reader would join Dorothy already in the land of Oz. There would be no recognizable conflict or rising action because there would be no exposition, no background, no setup. Your reader wouldn't know that Oz isn't her home. They wouldn't really know just who Dorothy is. Your reader wouldn't understand her urgency to leave. And as far as the conflict, her conflict with the Wicked Witch of the West would have no basis because they would have missed reading about her house landing on her sister. Your reader wouldn't even know that she's the protagonist and the Wicked Witch is the antagonist. And at this point, they wouldn't even care. She would just seem to be a local girl and for some reason despised by a witch. If you started with the beginning but left out the middle, then, after you introduced your protagonist and introduced your conflict with your antagonist, there would be no real confrontations, and just as the rising action toward the climax had begun, with a clear understanding as to what is going on, your story would jump to the end. But because there is no middle to your story, your reader wouldn't be able to continue following the rising action as well as the conflicts that would undoubtedly bring about tension on an increasing trajectory toward the climax. Without the middle, where the bulk of your story takes place, your reader would miss out on Dorothy's journey to the Emerald City and why she needed to go there. The middle also helps your reader to understand the importance of the secondary characters and how they help Dorothy to grow as a person. The middle also validates the rising action and her ongoing struggle through her conflicts with the witch as the tension builds to its ultimate height at the climax. But without the middle, the story would simply jump to the height of your climax in your ending without any appreciation for it because your protagonist would not have been doing anything to justify it. And if you began your story at the beginning and continued on through the middle, but stopped before you reached your ending, after establishing your characters, introducing your conflict, and taking your characters through one altercation after the next along the rising action, your story would build toward the highest level of tension to your climax that could never be reached. You would simply leave your story hanging. No falling action, no resolution, no satisfaction for your reader. During the ending, when Dorothy, after her long journey, finally arrives at the Emerald City, she discovers that after drawing back the curtain, the wizard, who she believed to be all great and powerful, is merely a con man, a facade, a charlatan. This moment of truth found in the ending is important because her belief that he is all powerful is her reason for setting out on her journey to the Emerald City in the first place. It is also the reason why she had convinced others to join her. Also found in the ending is the moment of highest tension. This is when the conflict between Dorothy and the Wicked Witch comes to an end during their final battle. In the ending of the story, Dorothy throws a bucket of water on the witch, destroying her forever. This is the point of the climax. Without an ending, the climax could never be reached. The rising action, the building tension, and the growing conflict would have nowhere to be released. Dorothy wouldn't have met the wizard and she wouldn't have discovered the way back home. More importantly, she wouldn't have discovered the true message that relates back to her dissatisfaction at having to live on a farm, which is what she could have only realized in the ending, that there's no place like home. I'll say it again. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. If anyone says otherwise, and I'm sure there are a few, I will say that they're mistaking a finished story for an incomplete story missing one of these three parts. The examples I just gave from The Wizard of Oz were incomplete stories because no story is ever complete without all three parts. Take your life, for example. It had a beginning, your birth, your existence now, which is the middle, and because you are still in the middle portion of your life, there is no ending yet. Your life story is incomplete. Now, if it's possible for you to live for all eternity, then you wouldn't need an ending. But that's highly unlikely. Even your day, the beginning is when you wake up and start your day. The middle is what you do throughout your day. And the ending is at the end of your day when you return back to sleep in preparation to start it all over again. Getting back to your story, imagine writing a horror story without a middle. Horror stories depend a great deal on the rising action and tension found primarily in the middle of a story. It's that slow, intense building of one altercation after another while the spirit or scary creature stalks the pretty college girl. Without a middle, your protagonist and your antagonist would be introduced in the beginning, and then it would jump to the end where the protagonist would kill the antagonist. confusing and a letdown to everyone who reads it. Your reader would realize that a story isn't just about making it to the ending. The journey getting there is just as important. What if you wrote a romantic story that only had a beginning and a middle? After the two lovers meet and establish that there is something between them worth discovering, along the rising action of the story, they conflict with each other as the tension between them builds until it reaches its highest point. The point where, after embracing the love they have for each other, they are finally about to accept the fact that they have always been and always will be right for each other. But since there is no ending, they never actually consummate their love, and the story stops. No resolution, no magical kiss. Now, I never said in your story the order has to be beginning, middle, and then ending. There is no rule that says your story has to conform to a particular order. In reality, in life, it is true. There is an order. You can't die before you're born, and you can't make it through your day after your day has ended. But with your story, you can begin in the middle and then, after a while, introduce the beginning. This could be in the form of a flashback or past vision. Then you could return back to the middle and then move toward your ending. If you were to use this concept to tell the story of a day in your life, you might begin telling your story during your busy day when something exciting takes place, like a robbery at the bank where you work. Then you move on to the ending of your day, and then after a shaky night's sleep, you begin telling what took place before you arrived to work that morning. This being the beginning. Remember, your story is just that, a story. If we're being technical, it is a narrative that recounts a series of connected events. Now, no one ever said that you, the writer, had to recount that series of events in a particular order. How you deliver it is entirely up to you, providing you fulfill the requirements of what a story is. So, if you want to start your story at the climax where your protagonist has just blown up the doomsday device, and along with it, the antagonist, there really is no problem doing it that way. Instead of going into the falling action, jump to the start of your story where you introduce your protagonist and antagonist. This technique allows you to make your story about the journey and not the ending because your reader already knows what happens at the end. They are now intrigued to find out how you get your protagonist there. Is there a story out there with one of the three needed components missing? Who knows? And frankly, who cares? Keep in mind, you are writing your stories for your reader. And like most readers, they like to read stories that have a strong beginning, a sustaining middle, and a powerful ending. Rob them of this, and you in turn rob yourself of a devoted reader. And here's the joke I promised you in its entirety. A bear and a rabbit were sitting in the forest taking a dump. The bear looked over at the rabbit and asked, "Do you have trouble with crap sticking to your fur?" The rabbit looked up at the bear and replied, "No, not at all." So the bear wiped his ass with the rabbit. Thanks for watching. And if you found anything that I said beneficial to you in any way, hit that subscribe button because you never know. My next video might just be helpful too.